Hello, everyone. This is Mary Kurek with Frontrunners Innovate, and I have two gentlemen with me today that, are way far apart from each other. One who comes to us from the United Arab Emirates, and one who is in Reno, Nevada, or has a project there, and probably moves around more than he is admitting, but that's where the project is. And he is our guest. This is Brent Lovett. We'll get to him in a minute, but I want you to get to know my co-host first. This is Ismail Tekin, and he is the founder of the World Impact Forum and also CEO of Lambert and Company. And so share with us a little bit, Ismail, a little bit about you so that we get our foundation set right at the outset.
Well, firstly, thank you for having me, Mary, and I'm honored to be your co-host. And throughout the call to get to know a little bit about Brent today as well. You know, I believe amazing people make amazing introductions, so I'm interested to see where this takes us. I'm originally London-born, Turkish heritage, Turkish and Cypriot heritage. Been in the UAE now for around 11 years, but on and off for 16 or so. I guess the reason I'm here is I wanted to push the boundaries of my comfort zone as an adult. Growing up in London, it could have been very easy for me to grow up in the society that I was born in, marry the girl next door, have a family business, etc. But I wanted a little bit more. And fast tracking to the time I've had here in the UAE, it was an opportunity for me to find out really what my core skill set was, or skill sets. And at the heart of that has been people and community. And over a decade now of building relationships, not really knowing where that would take me or has taken me. It was all fairly organic and holistic in the approach I've had. But what's phenomenal now is after all those years and some 500 people across the world who I see as custodians of what we're building, we're all a piece of this larger puzzle that we in our own sort of way. Everyone has their own vision, but I believe we're all aligned at some point and that we all add value to one another. So it was very much done in a not-for-profit way as the World Impact Forum, as the club that I had. And basically this year, the relationships and everything that we've been I personally been working towards, I wanted to crystallize it in a way. And my son was born on the 15th of March this year, first-time father. And actually, I think I shared this with you, Mary, maybe previously, that it was that day that the World Impact Forum came to me. It was something that I'd envisaged doing as a small event for the community that I'd built. But then I thought, why end there? Why not create something that's a legacy to the world? And we have an opportunity to build something that is transition to generations to come. So we've taken the first steps in doing that, building the community out and setting the vision for the World Impact Forum. So for us, it's about having a conscious community that lead to the future. And the reason I say consciousness is without consciousness, I don't think anything can exist. So it's that level of consciousness I'm hoping that takes us through to the future with the experts, the investors, the projects, the stakeholders that we work with. And that's where I see the alignment. And then the other part of my sort of the second hat I wear is my family business with my wife, which is our pet care business. So we're very, we love pets. We have 9 cats, 2 dogs, and it's a crazy house. And we have some e-commerce businesses. We do events and pet festivals, etc. So that's it in a nutshell. Thank you for having me once again.
Yeah, a little bit of everything.
Just slightly, and I'm really honored to be here and get to know a little bit about Brent as well. So thank you for having me, both of you.
Sure. So Brent is our guy of the hour. Brent Lovett, founder of Lovett Industries or Lovett Company. So he calls himself an Imagineer. So I kind of think that's the most apt word for you, Brent, I think I could ever come up with, even myself. So I love that. So Lion Modular is Imagineer for that, and also Lovett Companies in And that's sort of where we're established, I guess, in Reno. So wanted to have you share a little bit more about your journey and into coming into what you're doing, and then we'll get into the heart and soul of the really amazing thing that you, I think, probably tripped into, didn't realize this is what you were going to do, but here it is. So I'm just gonna tease people with that. You go right ahead and share a little bit about your background, Brent.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you, guys. Yeah, I guess trip into it is probably a very good lead in. I'm an architect and builder from Las Vegas. Been building hotel casinos and projects like that throughout my career. That's taken me around the world to I've actually been to Dubai as well, but to Macau and other countries to do hotel casinos. At the beginning of 2020, the largest casino merger was actually being undertaken between Caesars Entertainment and El Dorado. And so through that merger, they were required to sell off properties. One of those properties was the Harrah's Hotel Casino in Reno, Nevada. I got a tap on the shoulder saying, hey, we need you to go to Reno and take a look at this, because it was going to become the largest adaptive reuse in history. Convert a 1.8 million square foot facility with 980 hotel rooms, hotel casinos, all the rest of the parts of it, and convert that into market rate apartments, a tech office building, and a mall. So that was the beginning of 2020. I came up to Reno. Life was good. COVID hit. Life changed. Overnight, there was really a vast vacuum in any employees, and housing also got a vacuum at the same time. When COVID hit, a vast amount of people left California and came over the mountain into Nevada, which then caused real estate values to skyrocket, rents to skyrocket, and then you've seen a vast amount of people pushed to the streets because they lost their housing, could no longer afford it. COVID, I mean, just the combination of everything that hit at that time, it just created a mess, in my opinion. And so here I am sitting in a construction trailer right underneath the largest, biggest little city in the world sign. And I need to put together 300 employees now to undertake this, the largest adaptive reuse in history. And there just was no employees. But every morning, I would watch at 5 a.m., 800 to 900 people be released from the homeless shelter. They had converted the downtown convention center into a temporary COVID homeless shelter. And so every morning I'd watch this vast wall of bodies be kicked out of the homeless shelter because they had to fumigate it and do all this for COVID. And I just said, well, this upset me. I just could not believe what I was seeing, that there was this many people that had been displaced. And so I literally look up at a 26-story tower, and I have 900 hotel rooms, and I'm like, well, I'm going to go hire them. So I went out into the streets and talked and started working with the disenfranchised and said, hey, I'll put you into a hotel room. I will turn my buffet back on again, and I'll feed you 2 hot meals a day. And I'll put you into construction trades program training so I can train you to be the staff I need you to be. And I just stumbled and started doing it without any idea what I was doing, to be honest with you. And our success rate was just overwhelming. And then we started having other homeless shelters from other areas come to us and ask us, how could we be successful at what we're doing? And it became sort of a smile, because I'm like, well, because I don't know what I'm doing. All I know is I needed to build a workforce. Everybody had a different story. The 900 people you meet all have 900 different reasons why they became homeless. What drove them there? What, was it drugs? Was it their medications that they could no longer afford? They all had different stories. And the vast amount of vets that were on the streets was overwhelming to us as well.
Yeah.
And so basically we just put them into hotel rooms. We would give them a few weeks just to become comfortable, to realize that we're not trying to pull a scam on them. They really had their own room with the door that closed, and we weren't going to come in and check on them. We then started to, work, hey, do you need any kind of medical treatment? We gave them medical services, mental health services, and, that 2 hot meals a day. And literally my office was positioned right by the buffet. And it became just an interesting concept to watch. If you understand sort of Maslow's law of the hierarchy of needs, it was sort of watching that, because they have stumbled down all the way back to the very beginning of the hierarchy of needs, and how now they're trying to grow back. And so the first week you would watch them go and pick 5 or 6 plates of food to take to their room. And the hardest part was with my staff was staff wants to make a rule for everything. And I was very against rules. No, we're here to be empathic. We're here to listen, to see what they need and give them the tools that they need to grow, so that they will feel connected to us and connected to the job and to what we're trying to build here, and create basically a family. So, I mean, when you see a guy carrying 3 plates of food to his room, you go, just watch. Within a week, he'll realize there's abundance. He doesn't need to do that. We will just cook more food, and he will realize he only needs to take 1 plate to his room. And it's just watching everybody grow. It became, just overwhelming, very emotional, actually. Watching them begin to reconnect with their family. Watching them get their first car again. We had this last year our first person buy a house. If you can imagine, especially in the Reno market, to grow from, being, homeless to actually owning a home. And so we were running about a 72% success rate, which is about 3 times higher than most homeless shelters across the country. And because we just were empathic, we would listen to them and then try to figure out what their passions were, and then marry that passion together with the job that we needed. And so they weren't forced into doing something they didn't want to do. They were actually enjoying it. They would jump out of bed early in the morning to be there. We would hold a sort of a rah-rah, safety training session every morning, and the same at the evening. And then say, hey, what worked today? What did not work today? And we grew to over 300 employees. In 2021, we hired 283 people that were disenfranchised and put them through our program. And so Harris Project's big success. It's coming to an end. And this was not what we set out to do, but we don't want to see this end. So over the last year and a half, we've been acquiring properties out in what's called Silver Springs, Nevada, about 35 miles from Reno. And through COVID, vast amounts of high-tech companies have moved into what's called the Tahoe Reno Industrial Center. It was founded by Elon Musk when the creation of the opportunity zones. And now we have 75 tech companies working there. They need over 20,000 employees. They need currently 28,000 workforce housing units. So we're building basically a modular housing factory. It's going to be staffed by the people we train through our reentry program. We created a nonprofit called Reentry for All, and that will take them through this whole process. So we're building units that they can stay in temporarily, get 2 hot meals a day, mental health services, go into construction training. But it's not now just going to be construction training. We're going to partner with those 75 tech companies and get their needs list, and then train people for those jobs as well. And one of the greatest things that's come out of this is we literally are creating a training program for the employer, because employers are the ones that are having more of a problem relating to our staff. And so our staff is a little different. They're a little rugged, and they don't, if they make a mistake, you don't terminate upon making of a mistake. You give them, hey, this is, here's a better way of doing it. You give them more autonomy, bring their ideas to the table. And believe it or not, they have some great ideas. These guys have been very resourceful living on the street, and we've had some phenomenal cost savings come through from this group of people. And so you know, this, we didn't set out to do this. And that's why it was very hard for me to tell this story when people started asking me to tell the story. It's not my story. I was a guy who needed workers. And I seen a way to make a great workforce from people because I didn't care why they were disenfranchised. I didn't care if they came from prison or the streets or a rehab center. None of that mattered. What do you want to do? What you did yesterday doesn't matter. What do you want to do tomorrow? And then I trained for Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. So I started putting on my own 9-week training course and overwhelming how many people would attend, and work on a life plan, work on, what their goals and objectives are for 5 years, 10 years, then what legacy do they want to leave the planet before they leave. And just getting people re-energized. And it's been highly successful. What we're building now with Lion Modular, that will become an employee-owned company, an ESOP. So, they can come, go through our program, go work at Lion and actually get stock and ownership and, and never have to go back to the streets again. And every day get up and help build units for the next guy. Just that they can help the next person up. Right now with a need of 28,000 workforce housing, we'll never be able to put a dent in that. Our factory running 24 hours a day at the highest peak, once it gets there, can only be able to produce 3,000 units a year. And their need grows by 4,000 units a year right now. So we'll never even be able to put a dent in the need out here. So we have the perfect set of circumstances that have all come together to launch this. And in the end of the day, it actually makes a fortune. Which I keep banging on, bankers' doors, everybody else's doors. I'm like, guys, this actually we help all these people. We do all this good. We actually make an absolute fortune because we're building apartment communities that we own. We never sell a box. I said, and just the real estate play in this alone is worth billions of dollars in 5 years, multiple billions of dollars. It was like, it makes money to help people. It was like, so again, being an ESOP, everything else, and funneling that back in, it's going to give us the ability to then take this program and go to other inner cities. As we were talking earlier, just follow Elon Musk. Where Elon's gone, I know he does great things, but he also creates a vacuum. Where it doesn't help the lower end of the world. Because rents go up, everything goes up, more people get pushed to the streets, and not everybody wants to work at Tesla. So you have to, we're going to follow that because where Elon's gone, a lot of other tech companies have gone. So if you look at the Reno market, with Tesla, Google, Apple, all the big boys have come here. You look at the Austin market, same thing, Tesla, Google, Oracle, all the big players have gone that way. Then look at what their homelessness condition. It's gone up by like 1,000%. So there's a vast need there to help. And then go into other inner cities where you've seen the vacuum go the other way from the removal of like auto from Detroit, where the auto companies have left and have left a vacuum.
Right.
So
well, I already have a few questions myself, but I'm gonna ask Ismail if he'd like to chime in and share and ask.
I think it's not every day you hear a story like that, and it's.
I know.
I think there's a level of entrepreneurial spirit that Brent naturally seems to have, and also during COVID, I think he found, the humanitarian calling, and how amazing to be able to look at a series of misfortunes for many people and be able to come up with a productive solution that brings them back into society in a very positive way. I don't think there's many people in the world that are self-funded or they're an entrepreneur that can say that. I mean, governments have tried and failed. So it's a fantastic model, and I hope, I really do hope, Brent, that you take this across the country, in the US, and maybe people adopt it on a broader scale. And maybe apply the method you've used to other industries. It's so applicable. So, maybe it's not we can look at it as an agnostic solution, possibly. Who knows? maybe a conversation for another time. But I love the fact you're inspired, and I love the fact that you've also been able to show that it's a sustainable model in many ways, sustainable and impact driven, that it has a level of return to it. Because the irony is, a lot of the time people look at it and say, well, how are you making money? How's it sustainable? One of the questions I wanted to ask you is what inspires you? But I feel, I'd love to hear it from you, but for me, it's you're being inspired by just seeing these people go back to opportunity, have their lives back. What I wanted to ask you was, have you found any support through sort of government entities, institutional, or have you found support outside of what you've built? Would be my initial question. Are you finding you're very much you're left to do this on your own ultimately?
It feels like you're left to do it on your own. You get a lot of cheerleaders that will sit and clap and cheer and say great job, but getting people to finding the right people to put up the money basically, and it's very little to get this machine operating. But from a governmental standpoint, once the machine is operating, there's vast approvals for us and funding through the USDA. Yeah, they actually have a rural area funding to build not only the factory but the houses, and then offer a 30-year less than 1% interest rate on the actual units, which is another reason that this becomes such a cash machine once the machine starts, that it will then allow us to help even more people. So yes, we are going to rely heavily on the USDA and some of the government long-term takeout funding for these communities as we build them. But get the initial kickoff out of the ground, it's been more difficult than I would have imagined. So again, we've just been using our own funds because we have the need. So just like we had the need with the Harris Project to build a project and build a staff, we have this need for just apartments in this area. So using that need, we've been self-funding to move forward, but we're hoping to find more like-minded people, who can
that's
actually
all
see the
about
whole
finding
vision.
your tribe, right?
Yeah.
We're on this constant quest to find our tribe. I think through certain relationships you have over time, you start to build that tribe brick by brick. So I'm on the other side, or 2 continents across, but I'm happy to help and do what I can to bring this to the forefront, because I feel you've impacted so many people's lives single-handedly. The reason I asked about the support question is everybody likes, and you put it beautifully, everyone's applauding, well done, but how many people really want to roll up their sleeves and get involved? It's seldom, because everyone's fighting their own little fires on a daily basis. So a hero like you comes along. But I think that's where your strengths are. You can actually create something that can be transitioned beyond what you're doing there. I think you're a real pioneer in terms of what you've done. So fantastic. I'm honored to have heard your story. And I think this is only the tip of the iceberg of what we've heard.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mary.
It really is. And I think what makes Brent so unusual, he's like the complete package, the right person to be doing this, because he brings in the Stephen Covey work, the empathetic sort of approach to this, and so which would be non-traditional. Having been someone who has actually been in a shelter for chronic homelessness, not me personally, but have been in the managing part of a shelter of that, I do know the challenges that come with that. And you're right, the mental health thing shows up, the criminal element shows up, chronic homeless, and some are not chronic, but some, I remember dealing with one gentleman, and I liked him. He was really quiet. He was didn't get anybody's way. He ended up living in bathrooms on college campuses and things like that until they found him and, exited him. And I gave him a place in my office to put his coat and a few cans of food. At one point, he would get irate when he thought somebody was stealing his stuff. So that whole, taking 3 plates or 4 plates for a while until you are, assured that you are going to have to type of thing is very real. And I'm sure, if you're out there and you don't have anywhere to store something on a regular basis, you're constantly worried about somebody taking your stuff. But one of the things, he was a tech guru at one point. This young man out in California came home to look after his mother, only to find that his siblings had put her somewhere, and then she died. And I think he blamed the siblings for her death. And so he literally put his backpack on his back and just walked out the door, walked away from everything. What he wanted was to have no responsibility, not to depend on anybody. And one of the things that we talked about at one point is you can't go through life not depending on somebody at some point for something, especially if you're going to be homeless, because you're still counting on the good graces of somebody, who's got property to put you up somewhere, or roof over your head when it's cold or something like that. But you run into so many interesting and different personalities, and the fact that you're helping them with the mental health, the life goals and things like that is, I feel like, what we were talking about, the tip of the iceberg. I think you're solving issues well beyond homelessness. You're starting to now get into, a whole different arena with that. And I think you're just the perfect person to do that. What challenges are you feeling like you're running into there? Maybe some that you can't deal with, or some that you have to redirect to some other source?
Well, my challenges are more from the technical aspect of just building vast cities. That basically is what I'm trying to do. So it really comes down to infrastructure. So I met with our U.S. Senator yesterday and trying to get the D.C. to come in and help us more with just long-term 5, 10, 20-year type infrastructure planning. Because we don't want this to end. We don't see a need for it to end. So once we have the machine operating and we're building, master plan communities of these workforce housing, we need that infrastructure out ahead of us. And trying to get people to think 5, 10, 20 years ahead is not always the easiest thing, which is, again, a Stephen Covey thing. How do you plan on leaving the planet, or what's your 80th birthday look like? It's sort of the same thing with government and with everybody else. Most people are stuck with, where am I going to get my next meal? What does tomorrow look like? And I'm out here waving my hand going, hey guys, I want to talk about 20 years from now.
Where am I going to lay my head tonight is what there's, and where's my next meal coming from? Absolutely. Right. I can see that. So interesting what you brought up, Ismail, about the supports that he has, and the USDA being the primary government support that you're looking for, Brent. So let's move into what you're planning for 2023. I know you said it was going to be that pivotal year, official launch. What does that look like? Take us step by step, and what do you need to make that move forward?
Well, the beginning is we're breaking ground on 4 separate projects. We're basically going to build our units out of stick framing, basically, while the factory is starting to be built. So we're going to go out and build at least 100 units, so that I have at least 100 beds and doors that can close for the staff to come out here, so we can continue the program. As the Harris project completes, my fear is some of those people will go back to being homeless. So I do not want that. So that's why I'm moving mountains to get started. Stick framing and just the standard way of building an apartment building, basically, standard construction to perm financing, just the standard methods, and do that while the factory is actually, going through entitlements to be built. So 2023, we're very excited about. So, I'm back in Silver Springs permanently. I live here. I'm not leaving. I'm going to see for at least the next 36 months. I'm going to stay right here to get this whole operation up and running and smooth and just producing. And then we'll sit back and talk about where's our next step. What's the next market really could use us that has sort of those right conditions.
Interesting. As you think about that, and I don't know if Ismail's thought about this, refugees and refugee areas. I don't know if you mentioned Austin, and I'm not sure if Austin is where it geographically dovetails with a lot of the refugee problems that I know Texas has been experiencing. But just like the Ukraine Poland thing is, instantly they had thousands and thousands and thousands of people without a home or anything. And so a lot of those ended up remaining homeless, I think, for a period of time. And I think that's what we're experiencing in some areas, like in Texas. So is that something that has crossed your mind and you thought about addressing?
No, it was brought up a number of times. We just, honestly, I had just been focused on the homeless. Just, I didn't
Not
care
why they're homeless, just that they're
why,
homeless.
yeah, just that you're homeless. I'm sorry, it just really bothers me that this happens in America. And we have almost 2 to 3 million now that are homeless. When you go through some of the encampments in California, it is overwhelming to see
Ridiculous.
100,000 homeless. I was overwhelmed by 900. And when you see the large encampments, it's just, we're better than this. We can fix this, and we can have a good time at it, have fun, and empower them to grow again, and start climbing back up the hierarchy of needs again, and it is very emotional work. It's just because when you see them reconnect with their families, because most of them have burnt those bridges so many times, and then when families start coming back and you see those reunions, it's extremely emotional, and just watching people have pride again, and so much has been taken from them for whatever reason, and and we've learned a lot about mental health. I didn't know so many things.
Oh, yeah.
And we'll have a whole other podcast with
Yeah, I know that in
epic,
itself. Yeah, it's going to be key.
Well, there's a group called the Epic Brain Centers that you should probably just do one of these with, because they have developed some technology that helps tremendously, and it's non-invasive, and it uses magnets, and it's Dr. Jen from Stanford University. It'd be an amazing podcast for you to do.
Oh, I will have to think about that for sure.
Yeah.
Ismail, any other questions as we go into the final one or two questions I have for Brent? But any other questions that you may have or comments?
Yeah, part of what I've been thinking is what needs to be done to transition what Brent's doing to similar people across maybe the local states immediately in the vicinity. I know California's got its fair share of challenges. And also something I'm slightly, I want to say fixated on, but, coming to the grand old age of 44 now, I've started an interesting, knowing that there's so much homelessness in the West, not only in the US, but across Europe as well. I see it. And this isn't refugees. This is people who are British citizens, French, American citizens. And I'm starting to come to this sort of philosophy that we live in such a systematic world that some of those systems are collapsing. There's a level of there's holes in the systems that we built. So I wanted to ask Brent his experience living in a different part of the world, seeing it hands-on. I know stories when I talk to people back in the UK and all across the world. We're international people. Do you feel, Brent, that there's certain systems that we're so indoctrinated in some of those systems that we've built over the last 60, 70 years? Do you feel it's so systematic that we can't find a way out of it, that we actually have to pioneer solutions like you're doing?
I really do believe that. I believe that we've created a system that it takes very little mistake or a hiccup to collapse it. And that's why I think so many people, especially when COVID hit and 2008 collapse of the real estate process, were those things that just it was the one hiccup. And the sad point across the U.S. and Europe is most people are 1 or 2 paychecks away from being homeless. And those are the systems. We've built them into a world where they rely on credit, they rely on borrowing to a point and live a lifestyle. And then obviously that lifestyle is based on is constantly going up in value or cost, which obviously we're seeing now with inflation. So it's just, I think the big wave is ready to come at us again. So we need 100,000 guys like me that are just out there trying new things to retrain people. and then literally provide them that training. Most people don't have basic training on how to do finance. That was one of the things that was very shocking to me as we were putting them through courses, how many people, didn't really understand how to do budget, how to, and that was a big thing with our clientele is, you gave them a free hotel room to live in, you give them free food. What happens at that week two when they get that $2,000 or $3,000 check? What happens? What do they do when they now have money? And do they fall off? Do they disappear? I mean, and working through, giving them enough training, live before that too. Just say, hey, this is a big deal for you. We understand that, and if you make a mistake, don't feel like you can't come back. If you fall off the wagon, if your monkey was a drug or something else, then we're here. Started our AA programs, NA programs. We started doing, and the greatest part of all of this was watching how they helped each other. On the street, there's, what we have seen is they don't help each other as much. They're more territorial. But once they came into our environment, became, helping each other. So a lot of our greatest case managers and whatnot came from within. I didn't care you need to have school training to be a case manager. Can you actually listen, and help solve whatever the problem is that they have? Your educational background didn't mean anything. It's real world. Can you do hands-on? Can you communicate? And if, John is having a manic attack, why? And how do we calm them down and get them focused again? And then figure out, is the office meds or whatever happened? And not make rules. That's been the hardest part. Everybody, going back to your question of systems, we're a world of making rules. When something breaks, we need to make a rule so that doesn't break again. Well, that's not how people work.
You have such a fresh approach and mindset. It's phenomenal. When you hear of the sort of Robert Kiyosaki's of this world, or the Tim Robbins, and you think to yourself, it's great. You meet these people, you hear their podcasts or whatever, but you leave with sort of a speech, right? A philosophy that they've set. But with Brent, what you leave with is a skill set. Something that can be implemented, that can actually help you get back on your feet and put food on the table. I think that's pioneering. I think that's 5 or 6 notches up above the rest. Phenomenal. Absolutely.
I think that's world impact for your forum.
It is. I mean, there's a seat as a custodian at the table for you, Brent. Would be honored.
Well, thank you. And again, I try to tell this over and over. I did this out of a need, because I needed a workforce. I didn't set out to do this. And but now that I've done it, I can't let it go. I've got to keep it going.
Hero by happenstance. Okay, we'll call it.
Well, you've built a bit of a Noah's Ark for people.
Really, well put, Ismail.
Yeah.
Well put. I think that you are still in need of some things to get you rolling for the next year. So if you want to be exact with us and share with us what you need and who you might need. What kind of partners?
We're in the midst of a capital raise. We only need to. We have a $25 million capital raise that we're doing right now. We raised $1 million from the state through the COVID funds. That is a matching grant. So we have 24 more million to raise. We have 3 or 4 groups that are working that say they want to do it, but as we discussed earlier, I don't believe it until it's in the bank. That 25 million, once it's raised, that kicks off the factory. That is then the machine is running, and then everything from that point on is really basic financing, because we're building market rate apartments. So so from that point on, it's a very simple financial equation that keeps the whole machine running. But that first 25 million has been the toughest, and of course the last 12 months markets have. You can't judge from one day to the next on what we're going to go to. So every time we think we're there, then the markets go upside down or something else happens and people pull back. So we're not there until we're there. So I'm looking for $25 million in the process, can make money. And I'm looking, the problem too is finding people who think the way I do. They're not just walking in here to make a dollar. It's like, I want you to believe in the entire, caboodle from one end to the other, from the reentry program from helping people who are disenfranchised all the way through the model of what is Lion Modular and what that means, and then creating sustainable workforce and creating sustainable housing.
So investor partners, you have an investor deck, I'm sure. So if people are listening and would like to get involved, then that would be great.
Well, I've got a couple of great ideas already. So
I felt like I could see wheels turning in Ismail, like he's
yeah,
what he's
I've
doing,
got
apply it to something else.
Telling you, and they're on your doorstep as well. So, and these are people who are part of the tribe. So you'll feel really comfortable and at home. So I can't wait to introduce you to those two entities.
Fantastic. So that's what we hope for with all of these, interviews that we do. And certainly from my standpoint, I'm a business developer. So if I have somebody I can bring forward, this gives me the tool. The interviews are, yes, visibility, but more than that, it's an opportunity to have something better than a profile online to be able to move in front of other people. So that's the purpose here. I want to say thank you to both of you as we kind of finish up. And Brent, wonderful. Always a pleasure. I can't wait to talk to you again and maybe bring somebody in front of you like Ismail's wanting to do. Ismail, a pleasure. You and I haven't even had a chance to do an interview together, but let's plan to do that after the new year.
We haven't, and I thought about it, and I thought I'm humbled and I'm honored that I'm your co-host before even doing an interview with you one-on-one.
You're the first that I've ever asked to do this.
I feel honored, and thank you so much for entrusting me with that. And I feel like you have a partner in crime now.
Yeah, good. I mean, I've asked for co-hosts before, but there are always people I have interviewed and people that I know. You and I have spoken before, so I felt comfortable about that. It just felt like you were the right one.
I've enjoyed it, and what a phenomenal person to talk to in Brent today. And I feel the Brents of this world and people like you, Brent, need to be supported as much as possible. And a network isn't there to be protected. It's there to be shared, and it's the worth of all of us at the end of the day. So it's what's mine is yours. Hopefully it can add some value to you.
Thank you guys so very much.
Thank you. God bless you and all the work you do.
Thank you.
Okay. So you two stay on for just a second. I'm going to say goodbye to everybody else. If you're watching this on YouTube, go to www.frontrunnersinnovate.com where you'll get this interview once we publish it in the next few days. And also any pictures and bio material that you want to send to me, Brent. I don't know if you've already done that, but let's get some assets to put with this, website links, anything like that you'd like to share. We'll do the same with Ismail. So we'll have that information for him as well. Definitely need a color headshot on both of you, so don't forget to send me that. But definitely everyone else, check in on that interview where you'll get everything that you need to have there and ways to connect with these two wonderful gentlemen if you also have an idea. So thanks much. Bye-bye.